Hola, hoy vamos a estudiar cómo mostrar posesión en español. Showing possession is not so challenging because there's an easy pattern that you can follow. However, it does tend to confuse people that are learning Spanish that are native English speakers. The reason being is that there's no apostrophe S in Spanish. To show possession or ownership of something, instead you simply use the following pattern. The blank of blank. Don't forget that the word of is the word de in Espanol. So, for example, Maria's cat, you would say the cat of Maria. El gato de Maria. Take a moment to pause your video and see if you can figure out how to do these next two examples. Ahora, para decir Jorge's dog, you would say el perro de Jorge. The dog of Jorge is what it literally means. Rosa's friend is el amigo de Rosa. So as long as you always follow that pattern, you'll be able to show possession very simply. Ahora vamos a estudiar los adjetivos posesivos en español. A possessive adjective is a fancy way to tell you who owns something or describes the relationship between people or things. En inglés, usamos las palabras my, your, his, her, our, your, and their. Siempre en español hay que tener concordancia. So you always have to consider in Spanish number and gender. So masculine, feminine, singular, or plural of the item that's being described. Ahora estas palabras son las palabras, los adjetivos posesivos. To say my, we simply say me. I'm sure you've heard this before in class. Or mis, if I'm talking about more than one item. The word your is tu, or tus, for the plural form. And keep in mind that there's no accent. If I have an accent over tu, it means you instead of your. The word his, her, its, or your formal is su or sus. Our is nuestro, nuestra, nuestros, or nuestras. Your, in Spain, is vuestro, vuestra, vuestros, or vuestras. And their, or your plural, is su or sus. So a couple of observations. First of all, nosotros form and the vosotros form are always not just singular or plural, but also masculine and feminine. So pay close attention to the item that's being described. Furthermore, I'm sure you've noticed that the words his, her, etc., and their are the same. You just have to know which one the right answer is based on context. You may have noticed from the previous chart that the word your shows up 4 times. You just have to know who you are talking to or about. If you're talking to someone who addresses tú, then you would use tú or tus. If you're talking about usted, then you'd use su or sus. In Spain, you would use vuestro. If you're talking about you all, your all, which we don't really use in English. Or likewise, if we're in another Spanish-speaking country, instead of vosotros, we'll use ustedes, which is the equivalent of your in English, su or sus. Ahora vamos a practicar. Tienes que tener concordancia siempre mientras estás escribiendo estas expresiones en español. Make sure you pause your screen and see if you can figure out the answers to the following. My grandpa, mi abuelo. Mi is singular and so is abuelo. My sisters, mis hermanas. Now the word sisters is, because it's plural, the word mis is also plural. His aunt, su tía. Our cousins, nuestros primos, or if I'm just referring to female cousins, nuestras primas. Your stepfather. Here I have the informal form of your. Tu padrastro. Your formal son, su hijo. Your plural parents, sus padres. And here I would use this kind of your if I'm perhaps talking about the parents of multiple children. Siblings, in other words. And finally, your grandmother. The grandmother of you all. Vuestra abuela. Ok, ahora debes hacer la prueba en Google Form para terminar la tarea. Make sure you complete the Google Form quiz in order to finish your homework. The form can be found just below this video. Adiós.